More important is NDLEA. Hello and welcome to the NDLEA Open Forum on Twitter Space. My name is Mahmoud Isa. As the 2023 general elections draw near, it is time to focus on one of the most critical issues facing the involvement of our youth in drug abuse and electoral violence. We all know that the future of any nation lies in the hands of its youth, and it is crucial to ensure that they are on the right path, free from the influence of mind-altering substances. The NDLEA is dedicated to creating awareness and educating the public on this pressing matter. So, without further ado, let me invite our host and advocacy at the NDLEA, Mr. Femi Babafemi, who will tell us more about what to expect in today's session.
Thank you very much, Mahmoud. A very good afternoon to all of us already on the space, and for those who are joining us in a different environment where there is a time difference, especially Loretta joining us from Chicago, Illinois. A very good morning to you, and for those who are in the region where it's already evening, a very good evening to you. Thank you for joining our conversation again today on this very important topic of addressing youth involvement in drug abuse and electoral violence. We would be running so fast because of the interest in this particular topic, as well as the number of speakers we have more than one today. We will have two persons, two guests who will be addressing us or speaking to us on this particular issue, and thereafter we will be doing the way we do it as usual, that is interrogating their presentations, and thereafter, and also asking questions so that we can help ourselves, educate members of the public, as well as share knowledge. But before we get to that, let me quickly recognize some of the early persons, those that have come early on to join today's conversation. I can see our own Parabawa. Thank you for coming around again today. I have also seen Dr. Jonah Kolo. Thank you for being part of the conversation again early today. Thank you, Loretta. Very, very always constant. I can assure you today, Loretta, that another senior member of the platform who went on a leave of absence, I got her message that she would also be coming back to be part of this conversation today. I'm talking of Dr. Kemi Olunloyo, even though she said she'll be coming a bit late, but then we're expecting her. I'm also glad I've seen our own Bashir Ibrahim, who have quite a number of you out there. Thank you all for. I've also seen already. I can recognize our guest today. That is Barrister Shooks Akamadu. He should be on the speaker's corner any moment from now. I've also seen our own ACGN Hamid Sulawan. Thank you all. Quickly, let me run through another a public announcement, so to speak, and that is talking about the agency's drug abuse call center, which is a center devoted or dedicated to the provision of psychosocial support to individuals and families of those who abuse substances, those who are struggling with recovery. This is a center where we have a team of licensed and credible clinical psychologists, counselors, support workers, mental health professionals. I'm talking of psychotherapy, psychologists, counselors, psychiatric doctors, and other professionals in that field who provide support in aiding the recovery and managing social and emotional problems of those who have these issues. And that center opens 24/7. The people there, the professionals there, work around the clock, even though they do this in shifts, but then they are always available 24/7. Wherever you may be in any part of the country, whether in the northeast, northwest, north central, southeast, southwest, south of Nigeria, your location is not a disadvantage. All you need to do is to dial the number they call the toll-free helpline, which is free. You are not paying for it. 0800 1020 3040. I repeat again, the number to call the toll-free line 0800 1020 3040 for those who are struggling with drug abuse, those who need counseling, those who need to ask questions, and for those again who may want to give the agency anonymous information, please feel free to call that helpline. They will take your information and pass to the appropriate department to handle that. Once again, I welcome each and every one of us today. Like I said, we'll be discussing this very important topic, addressing youth involvement in drug abuse and electoral violence. As you all know, this is the season of election in our country, and we know also very well that our youth are very key, and I can see quite a number of them have been very active this time around. So for us, we need them to stay alive. We need them to take the right decision, the best decision, without doing that under the influence of any illicit substance. And so that is why we're bringing this, because we know that for the selfish people out there who have their kids, their own words safe under their roof or even elsewhere, they may want to use some of these young minds to do some not too good stuffs, and to use them, they need to get them under the influence of mind-altering substances. And so that's why we're bringing this topic, so that we all can have this conversation, so that our youths can understand their position, their role, and the things they need to run away from. And today, we'll have two. I wouldn't want. They are not that young, but then there are people who are knowledgeable in this particular area. As far as the agency is concerned, the person who handles or who is involved in at the level of working, who is on the committee, the Election Security Committee, the INEC, our own Director of Internal Affairs and Provost Marshal of the agency, he will be telling us the role of the agency in all of this, as well as where the things we are doing or we've been doing. I can tell you quite a lot about that, but then I want to leave that to him to handle, while we also have our own Barrister Shooks Akamadu. Barrister Shooks Akamadu, I can tell you a lot about him. He's somebody I've come in contact with, and I've seen how passionate and how committed he's been in the fight against drug abuse. Shooks Akamadu is the founder and president of the Center for Ethical rebirth among Nigerian youths, in short form, Serani. He's a passionate, like I said, a passionate anti-drug abuse activist with over 20 years of active engagement in the drug demand reduction space and a war against drug abuse ambassador. He is a member of several professional organizations, including the Nigerian Institute of Management, as well as Institute of Directors, among others. Before we get Barrister Shooks Akamadu, who is already on, let's quickly get to know what role does the agency play in elections matters, and in this particular case, what is the level of involvement of the agency in ensuring that we don't have people abusing illicit substances and getting involved in electoral violence? Or is there a connection, a nexus between drug abuse and electoral violence? All of this I want to leave to ACGN Hamisu Lawa, the agency's Director of Internal Affairs and Provost Marshal, to give us a talk on this for the next 20 minutes, and thereafter we'll get Barrister Shooks Akamadu to tell us about what he thinks should be the role of our youth, what his expectations and his understanding of this topic, so that we can all share knowledge, and then we'll begin to interrogate this topic and especially their presentations. I'd like to, without wasting much of our time, invite Assistant Commander General of Narcotics, Hamisu Lawan, to please make his presentation, and we'll thereafter switch to Barrister Shooks Akamadu. Please, over to you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Director Media and Advocacy, our own very own, Mr. Femi Baofemi. And thank you, community members in the space and other listeners. My name, as already introduced, I still remain Alaja Lol, ACG and MNI. The agency, being a member of ISIS, that is the Security Consultative Committee on Election Security, do play an active role in ensuring a free, fair, and credible election, peaceful for that matter. And to that extent, we are expected to collaborate along other security agencies to ensure in consideration and in guidance with the ECOWAS Protocol on Good Governance and Democracy, and as well as African Charter on Democracy, Election and Good Governance, as well as the Electoral Act 2022, are expected to be guided in ensuring free, fair, and credible election. And part of the provisions of the Electoral Act has to do with electoral violence. And over time, it has never been too contentious as to the position of substance of abuse as being a catalyst of violence, not necessarily electoral violence alone, but violence in generic term. It might not necessarily be a factor in isolation, but it is an established fact that it's play a very critical role in accelerating or accentuating the issue of violence. And part of the discussion was that in the as we move towards not necessarily even the electoral period, even the campaign period, the tendencies and the desperations of actors do now have to apply some other measures, even some sort of an unconventional or in some major unacceptable process in what they're trying to determine or clearing path for what they believe circulation. And as we move towards the electoral period, the election period, as an offense, certainly the respective agencies will now come into play. And for us, notwithstanding, whatever you are doing, in as long as you choose to first the predicated offense of drug abuse, because an abuse of drugs or possession of drugs remain a crime. So in as long as you are found in possession of drugs, you've committed a crime and you would have to be dealt with accordingly. Except where in circumstances where it is appraised and found that, well, the abuse is such that it is the malicious act of another person, not necessarily you, then we would have recourse to refer you for proper screening, profiling, and then assess whether you really require counseling and rehabilitation, or that the action is such that it's predicated and predetermined towards the commission of crime, in this context, towards electoral violence. And I think that is where now the nexus and understanding of the critical these very much important, that we are drawing their attention to be more concerned, because the truth of the matter is that larger percentage of deepening democracy, good governance, lies more on the critical actors, and that is the politicians. Because we're looking at, in as long as you try as much as possible, you don't encourage the youths, or the youths themselves not allowing themselves to be used as just a tool, then of course, a larger part of the solution is selfish politicians. Be rest assured you have yourself to blame, because the Electoral Act has position on issues of possession of drugs and misuse of drugs is very much clear, and it will apply. So it is our intention that this sort of guideline and such a direct has been issued from time to time, because we've always been remaining unrelenting for people that are following uh, our medium. You see that every week we do issue some sort of guidelines, advisory, and in some cases warning to the general public, and in particular the youths, because there is a pathology that has been seen that 2023 general election, the youths have a very, very larger role to play, because a sizable number of percentage, even most of them are the registered voters. So the expectation is that we hope the youth this time around, instead of allowing to play a role that would derail the electoral process, they must be guided, and they must be cautious not to allow themselves, by way of using drugs, ending up, instead of heading to the polling station, they ended up going to the prison. A warning that we've always been calling on the general public, and in particular our friends, the youth, who have the future who are to determine the course of the nation, as we are moving towards a nation building. And that is what we've been calling, and we expect that people will adhere to that. Meanwhile, I want to take this liberty as well to equally sound a word of caution, because quite a number of people seems not to understand that the position of the law on the issue of drug abuse is very much clear. Is not something that you deliberately and prepare yourself to go and get either drunk, or somehow sedate yourself, or somehow hallucinate yourself with the intention that you want to obstruct or or cause violence, because the definition of that is so wide by electoral acts. For people to go about harassing harassing innocent citizens, to go about tearing other people's posters, to go about using uncut languages. These are all provisions of the Electoral Act. And in some cases, you're subjected to the drug integrity test, and unfortunately for you, it turned out to be positive. Sadly, the process and profiling of National Drug Law Enforcement Agency will apply. And that is what we've always been drawing the attention of people, because if you are found in that and it is established by the profiling that it was a calculated attempt, the what the lawyers are saying, the intention and the action will be put together, and then towards the process of commission of crime will now be established. And I think people would need to be very much guided on this. So, by and large, as it were, Drug Law Enforcement Agency across the state of the Federation, working with all the other stakeholders, especially the Law Enforcement Agency, being a member of ISIS, that the Inter-Consultative Security on Election Security, we would have to play a very critical role, and that's by now we've already rolled out our machinery. Our officers, alongside others, were adequately informed as to their role and the expectation and after the election, because we view that the process and our intervention starts before, during, and after. And of course, already we've carried out an induction and training for our personnel to be guided, because it is slightly an additional responsibility besides just the normal law enforcement that has to do with drug abuse, drug trafficking, but this time around has to be in relation to electoral violence and to ensure good order for seamless electoral processes. And that is what we must continue to do, and that is what we've been advocating. And I'm sure now the viewers are very much informed about our role. And of course, we expect that everybody will be guided by the Electoral Act, which is very much there in the public domain. And of course, our friends, the youth, should be very much more careful. First, acknowledging that, yes, we have a role to play. Second, the future is ours. Third, we are to determine that same future so that we don't allow ourselves and ended up being used as a scapegoat or just as a tool towards derailing the democratic process. Because when you have electoral violence, maybe orchestrated by desperate politicians giving you drugs in such a way that you temper or you create a situation whereby the electoral process is not or has appeared not to be acceptable, then of course you have played a role in derailing the future of Nigerian youths, which of course the expectation is that so much is tied down to your own responsibility. And of course, the youth have a much bigger stake than any other person in the social strata of the society. And that is a call, and we hope that the youths, the very good listeners here, would take a cue and take the process and perhaps take the argument further, and knowing and understanding that they have a very good role and an expectation that is very important in the democratic process. As we progresses, I'm sure quite a number of issues will come, so that we will have to give some further clarification in the process as to what other role we're likely going to play, especially if somebody is caught fomenting trouble under the influence of drug abuse. Because, like I said, we will certainly not fold our arms. The provisions of the law will certainly apply. And luckily, we have quite a number of intervention strategies. Of course, beside the rehab, beside the detention facilities, will certainly, in the case of a examine and assess and appraise drug user who potentially we understand that that action was orchestrated as a result of malicious act of another person, not necessarily because he actually wanted to commit drug law enforcement will take very much interest in that and be guided as well, so that we don't appear to be caught now. You have yourself to blame if you choose the other way, notwithstanding the case in that circumstance is very much clear, and that the
Yes, I think Mahmoud, you're having a network issue where you are. You may have to relocate because your network is breaking badly, and that's taking off the presentation of the PM. Mahmoud, can you hear me? Mahmoud, can you hear me? Mahmoud, can you hear me? Dele, is Mahmoud there? Dele, is Mahmoud there?
Yes, Isana.
It's 15:35. To hear your notifications, follow the notification on your phone to turn on notification access.
Yes, Mr. Femi, I'm feeling loud and clear.
All right, thank you very much, Mahmoud. I think let's is the PM with you there?
Yes, I'm right there with you.
Okay, please let's allow you to land on your presentation, and thereafter we proceed with the other guest. That's Barrister
Yeah.
Chuks Akamadu. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, and sorry, listeners, for the technology challenge, and luckily we are able to overcome it. What we're trying to say is that the Nigerian youth should understand that they have a very important and critical role to play in the electoral process. For us, we believe the electoral process commences before, during, and after the election. And of course, we've already drawn the attention to the general public to understand that the Electoral Act 2022 made pronouncement about what constitutes electoral violence. And in the process of our interaction as members of our Consultative Committee on Election Security, issue of drug abuse or drug of abuse being a catalyst of electoral violence and violence in general is never in doubt. And that is why we have to, we've already evolved a strategy even before the electoral period by way of mopping up of drug of abuse, mopping up of drug of abuse within the election proper. We will heighten our operations and the clearance exercises. And for you, the youths, we've always been echoing by way of advocacy and in some cases by way of warning that you should be guided, because if you are caught napping, taking drugs to foment trouble, the provisions of NDLEA Act and the provisions of Electoral Act will apply purely and squarely. And of course,
we are not too oblivious of the fact that for those whose action is as a result of malicious act of another person, of course, the sponsor of that the law will apply on him, while we will now profile, see, and determine what is the vulnerability level of the persons that so abuse the drug, and how we can now take him out of that scene by way of if it's required rehabilitation process that will now be exposed to that and would have the privilege of taking you to a rehabilitation center. But if for any reason it is determined that you did that deliberately to foment trouble, to derail the electoral process, of course, you should expect that already the provision of NDLEA Act is there, and the Electoral Acts combined together will be deployed appropriately. And that is the mission, that is the message we are sending to the general public. And we should be guided that the Electoral Act defines what constitutes violence itself. For you to allow yourself by desperate politicians to go and maybe disparaging other people's poster, unquote languages, using some sort of violence by way during the electioneering campaign or during the election proper. That what constitutes electoral violence, and sadly the law will take its course. And the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, it's equally part and parcel to deploy its arsenal and play its role in determining if for any reason that you abuse drugs simply to cause trouble, then the law will take its full course, notwithstanding that you are a user. Director, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, our own Hamisu Lawan. For that presentation, I note particularly a line in your presentation that is our interventions are not just tied to the election, but then that is the period or the season of the election. Our interventions have always been before, long before, and that's why we have facts and figures, statistics rolled out every now and then, especially weekly, to inform people about our arrest in the area of drug supply reduction, as well as what we do in drug demand reduction, educating, raising awareness among the people so that they don't find themselves in awkward position. And very well, we are glad that we have the next guest, to make a presentation, and that is Barrister Shooks Akamadu. As I said before, Barrister Shooks Akamadu is the president and is the founder and president of Center for Ethical Rebirth among Nigerian youths. Somebody that I know personally, and someone who has been very passionate about anti-drug abuse. Somebody who has for over 20 years now has an active engagement in the drug demand reduction space, and it's a war against drug abuse ambassador. Barrister Shooks Akamadu, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself and let's enjoy your presentation. And thereafter, would invite everyone on the space to interrogate the two presentations and ask questions. Please go ahead.
Thank you so very much, our A-Blessed Director, Media Publicity of NDLEA, Mr. Baba Femi. Good day, everyone. Quite frankly, it will be an understatement on my part if I say I'm delighted to be here on the invitation of the National Drug Law Enforcement NJC, the NDLEA. In the same vein, I'm immensely grateful to the agency for finding me worthy of this rare honor. And thankfully, the topic, I must say, is apt, very apt, and couldn't have come at a more auspicious time. Before now, I thought that I had a task, but SCGN Hamisu MNI has actually taken that burden off me with that very incisive, informative, and instructive presentation of his. So I don't know where to start from because I think he's done justice to the topic of the day. And maybe so that my being around wouldn't be a waste altogether. Maybe I should do an addendum to what SCGN Hamisu MNI has shared with us. That said, I would like to start by making a preliminary remark with the kind permission of my host. The remark is on the imperative of drug abuse prevention as opposed to its treatment and care. I would like to respectfully request that those parents and guardians who are still living in denial of drug abuse to please cease forthwith in their individual interest. The menace is here with us, and indeed is raging like wildfire. And if its care is not taken, I'm afraid we might all be destroyed by it. Pray by all means, let's prevent our youths, our young people from experimenting with drugs. It's cheaper to prevent than to treat and provide care. Mere experimenting with drugs could lead to casual consumption. The latter, of course, which is casual consumption, also has the potential to lead to habitual consumption. And without knowing it, habitual consumption on its part almost always leads to drug dependency. And a life that is dependent on drug or addiction or that is addicted to drug, you will agree with me, is not desirable at all. Well, whilst it makes lots of sense to continue to pray that our youths are not found anywhere near the neighborhood of drug abuse, I think that it will be smart parenting on our part to presume that they are actually facing drug use and drug abuse threats at present. And when I say use the word they, of course, I'm referring to our young people. It's a sad reality. It's a sad reality that is staring us in the face. We should stop playing the ostrich. This, in my view, would be a proactive way of shielding them from an epidemic that is on the prowl. Incredible as it may sound, ours is a society that is battling with anxiety occasioned by the sad reality that her drug abuse prevalence rate is 14.4%, almost twice the world average of 5%. This should alarm every well-meaning Nigerian. Trust me, it's not debatable that drug abuse also compromises national security. Of course, the electoral process inclusive, as well as endangers public health. What is more, the statistics are I'm sure this should make all of us bow our heads in shame. Similarly, according to the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Kaduna, 6 million bottles of codeine expectorant were sold in the northwestern part of the country daily. 6 million bottles of codeine expectorant being sold in the northwestern part of the country daily. What an evil economy. That's not all. Disclosures made by NDLEA indicate that in 2015 alone, the agency seized within our borders narcotic drugs valued at 22 billion naira. According to the same NDLEA report of 2018, in 1 year, over 14.3 million Nigerians between the ages of 15 and 64 use hard drugs and psychotic substances for non-medical purposes. Some report says that 10.6 million Nigerians abuse opioids, while 2.4 million youths and adults abuse codeine-based syrup, with 92,000 more using cocaine. Worse still, a 2016 Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital Cardinal survey says that, that had been noted earlier. The real misfortune, however, is the real misfortune, however, is national emergency. Obviously, the NDLEA is overwhelmed. Why won't it be? There are reports that those who are supposed to take sides with the law are the ones trampling upon it. Whilst ordinary citizens do their thing in the comfort of their homes and designated hideout, a section of our political elite and a growing clan of unscrupulous elements within the security and law enforcement agencies have been alleged to be doing same in the official fortresses with absolute state protection. Simply meaning that, come on, truly this is a hydra-headed monster that has permeated every facet of our national life. Drug abuse is a plague on the nation. What still, it deteriorates by the second. Our collective failure to give it the attention it deserves had emboldened it to become fashionable. And as a fad, the vulnerable, particularly the youth, are being left at the mercy of peddlers and consumers who are constantly recruiting them. At this juncture, I think that it would only be proper for us to acquaint ourselves fully with the key terminologies and concepts to enable us to stay within the borders of the broad theme, which is addressing youth involvement in drug abuse and electoral violence. And the question that readily comes to mind is, who is a youth? Well, according to the United Nations, persons between the ages of 15 and 24 years are youths, although essentially for statistical purposes. However, the same UN recognizes there are member states who individually refer to youths as persons between the ages of 18 and 30. And if it stretch further, you could, agree with me that in our climate, the definition of who a youth is could actually stretch beyond age 30 to that of 35. Well, what is most important, if you ask me, is young people, those who are yet to hit 50 years of age, to realize that they are being referred to anytime we are dealing with issues concerning young people or youths of this country. And then let us quickly proceed to the next terminology, which is, okay, what is drug? We are doing all of this thing, because we wouldn't want to take anything for granted, so that all participants will have benefit of some of the words that are being used here, so that we can all be acquainted with what is being said, and so that at the end of the day, we are all at we operate at same level, have the same understanding for mutual reward ultimately. For our purpose, drug is any substance that makes a person feel high. By high, of course, we mean the occurrence of alteration in a person's judgment or mind. That thing that one takes that alters the state of his mind and alters his judgment and makes him think that things that are far are near, and makes him think that things that are near are far. That's an alteration. That is a drug in this context, which leaves such person, of course, it leaves such person potentially dangerous. The highness is actually a certain, very certain route to one's destruction. Please, I urge youths to run away from any substance that contains narcotic, well, you could call it sedative, psychotic, you could also call it recreational drugs, alcohol or smoking, or psychotropic, you could call it antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, stimulants, and mood stabilizers, whatever name or nomenclature you choose to give to it. The substances you should stay away with, should stay away from include marijuana, skunk, loud, Arizona, Colorado, flakka, alcohol, ketamine, DMT, cocaine, crack, steroids, salvia, codeine, mescaline, hashish, etc. Well, but really, the name they are called by do not really matter that much, because their street names are oftentimes different and the list is inexhaustible. The most important thing is that we are all aware of the dangers of any substance that we consume that would end up altering our mind, altering our judgment, thereby predisposing us to sundry crimes and acts of criminality. Rather, what actually matters is that their consumption predisposes one to actions that are inimical to the consumer's well-being and violent crimes. Of course, when we talk about violent crimes, electoral violence is included. Then what is drug abuse? Simply, it is the unauthorized use of drugs or prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs, as the case may be, for purposes other than those for which they are meant to be used, or in excessive quantities. I repeat, because this is central to this our conversation this afternoon. Drug abuse is the unauthorized use of drug or prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs, as the case may be, for purposes other than those for which they are meant to be used, or in excess quantities. And the question is, does it have consequences? Sure. Drug abuse could lead to complicated mental, social, physical, emotional, and job-related problems. Stretch further, the basic impacts are that it necessarily reduces one's productive capacity, endangers one's health, and ultimately distorts family harmony. Oftentimes, it predisposes one to unintended sundry crimes and acts of criminality, including domestic violence, stealing, terrorism, and indeed electoral violence, which is of immense concern to us today. Then, for those who would want to know what electoral violence actually means, it is the act of deploying unlawful and coercive means of influencing election outcomes before, during, and or after elections. This is my view. It is a vicious assault on the law and consequently makes a mess of the very essence of democracy, which is supposed to be about unhindered freedom of choice. With electoral violence, elections are no longer what they ought to be, and the outcomes are no longer a true reflection of the wish of the people. Please note that electoral violence can take different forms and shapes. It could be by physical assault of opponents or opponent supporters, suppression of votes, threats, intimidation, kidnapping, or instilling of fear in the minds of opponent camps. And I was quite excited when the SCG and Hamisu MNI went to some considerable length to remind us that electoral violence are actually offenses against the law, and those who breach that law would have no respite, that the full weight of the law would be brought upon them. Now, the question is there a nexus between drug abuse by youth and electoral violence? Because on the one hand, we are talking about drug abuse, and on the other hand, we are talking about electoral violence. So the question we would want to answer satisfactorily is whether they are actually interrelated in any way. Well, I recall vividly that while receiving the Presidential Advisory Committee on the Elimination of Drug Abuse PASEDA report on October 18, 2019, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari had this to say, and I'm quoting President Buhari now. Our findings have shown that it is more difficult to bring down crime rates to acceptable levels without clearing our country of substance abuse. With those instructive words of Mr. President on the nexus between the rising wave of violent crimes in Nigeria and drug abuse, has it not become all too glaring that drug abuse breeds crime? Again, electoral violence inclusive. Interestingly, President Buhari is not alone on this. Earlier, the immediate past chairman of NDLEA, Colonel Muhammad Mustafa Abdallah, retired, leading from the fourth line, has said that, and I quote him, Colonel Abdallah, retired, drug abuse in Nigeria should be declared as emergency in Nigeria, even ahead of terrorism. This is because terrorism is hugely fueled by drug abuse. End of quote. It therefore logically follows that electoral violence, like every other violent crime in our society, is also hugely fueled by drug abuse. So I guess this satisfactorily answers the question whether there is a nexus between drug abuse and electoral violence. In conclusion, I would want to concede that this is not the best of times for Nigerian youths. I can also relate with the fact that a number of factors ranging from boredom to economic hardship, peer pressure, unemployment, stress, and lack of parental guidance could actually lead youth to drug abuse. But none of those is reasonable enough to warrant drug abuse, because every young person has an inherent willpower to rise above the temptation in their enlightened self-interest. And I dare say that the choice is the youth. The young people of Nigeria will have to choose whether to ruin their future or take their destiny in their own hands and stay away from this menace of drug abuse in order to ensure that their future is guaranteed. In tackling the issue of youth involvement in drug abuse and electoral violence, I think the point should be clearly made that abuse of drug causes long-term and short-term changes in the brain, which results in mental health concerns such as depression, paranoia, aggression, anxiety, and hallucination. It can also cause or worsen cancer, heart diseases, liver function, lung disease, mental disorder, and infectious diseases like HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and hepatitis. This is so true. So, to this extent, drug abuse ultimately wrecks whoever that gets hooked on it. Again, I repeat, the choice is that of the youth of Nigeria. On the other hand, it is, for want of a better expression, suicide. I repeat, suicide for a youth to lend themselves to a desperate politician as a tool for electoral violence. Because periodic elections are actually conducted in order to give same youth an opportunity to determine their future and the future of their society by choosing the right set of leaders. Elections are about the future, and the future, I'm told, belongs to the youth. Or does anyone think differently? Therefore, every sensible Nigerian youth should naturally view elections as a sacred exercise and guard it as jealously as possible, because its outcome would be of great consequence to them. In view of the foregoing, one can at this juncture, safely assert that both drug abuse and electoral violence are enemies of the youth, that the youths ordinarily should unite to fight this twin evil called drug abuse and electoral violence. Drug abuse and electoral violence are two sides of an evil coin designed to fritter away all the beautiful opportunities that lay ahead of young people. So there should be a consensus on the part of young people to actually surmount these challenges and ensure that their tomorrow is kept free and safe. Or does anyone think differently? If no, then I will think that perhaps the best way to sign off for me is to ask the youth of Nigeria this rhetorical question. Drug abuse and electoral violence, I beg, who will help? I ask again, drug abuse and electoral violence, who will help? Thank you for listening. God bless you for your patience. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you very much, President Shooks Akamadu, because you made your presentation. Okay, Shooks, you have to mute yourself now. Okay, maybe I should move you from here. Okay, thank you very much, because that was affecting my own comments from here. Thank you once again, Barrister Shooks Akamadu, for that presidential presentation. Indeed, he even ended it in form of as if he's the president of Nigeria addressing the citizens. That's awesome. A very detailed presentation. Thank you once again, Barrister Shooks Akamadu. We know you are very passionate about this, and indeed you delivered passionately. Once again, we appreciate you. Just stand by as we take interrogations and reactions to the two presentations. I have quite a number of them already in our DM. I'll be coming to them, but then before we come to our DM, for those who may want to make their own comments, for those who may want to ask questions or offer their own insights or make their comments or views known on these two presentations or the topic, you are free now to request for the microphone. We'll approve your request while you stand by. Just hold on until we invite you to unmute yourself as we approve you to be on the speaker's corner. I think I'm seeing our own lady Chicago, Dr. Loretta, requesting for that. But before Loretta comes on to make, because I know she's another passionate person who I know she's in the morning where she is right now while we're in the evening in this part of the world, but then she takes her time every time to be part of this conversation for the betterment, even though she's technically escaped to another part of the world, but then she's still very much passionate and committed to the well-being of Nigeria and Nigerians. Thank you very much, Loretta. But before I come to you, Loretta, to probably make your comments, observations, and remarks, let me quickly again acknowledge Shamoun Yusuf Ozegia. We also have Ibekwe Noyerem. Sorry, permit me if I didn't get right. Ibekwe Noyerem. Clement. We also have Yasir Aminu Bature, King David Ojokuku, Ibrahim Ahmed Usman. While we have another big man in the house, Ibrahim Sani. We also have another Ibrahim Ahmed Usman. We have the law. We have Pius Bidat. We have quite a number of you on the space who would be recognizing another batch of another set of people as we go on. But quickly, let me. I know Loretta is eager to interrogate or to ask questions, but then I know she'll make some remarks. Let me come to her before I go to our DM. Dr. Loretta, over to you. Please unmute yourself and let's hear from you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Babafemi. Good morning, all colleagues. Good morning,
Loretta,
speaker.
not all of us is in the US, so we're already in the evening here in Nigeria, so you can as well give us good evening. So
I'm so sorry.
I know,
I'm
right?
so sorry.
Please go
I'm
ahead.
Oh God, this is a blunder. Okay, good evening, everyone, and good afternoon to those that are somewhere else in the world. Good morning to friends in this part of the world where I am. And thank you for the contributions, Dr. Chuks and the director at the NDLEA. Absolutely, your presentations were just on point and spot on. I'm not interrogating today. I'm kind of in a hurry. I'm running to school, but I decided to take some time to participate before I run out. However, I have just one question, and that I will direct to the director at the NDLEA. Sorry, sir, I missed your name. It's really, not in my place not to remember names and address you by your name.
It's actually ACGN Hamisu Lawa MNI.
Okay, so Mr. Lawal, MNI. My question to you, sir, apparently you're the one leading you're part of the Security Council for monitoring the forthcoming elections. I just left Nigeria, say a week ago, and my fears are very high. Elections aren't here yet, but there are violence everywhere, and we know that most of them are actually under the influence of one substance or the other. Because I keep saying that it's only a very wicked and heartless person that would destroy lives and properties, just with just ordinary eyes. And my question is, what are the plans? I heard you say for those that are caught with substance during the elections, they will the NDLEA law will be enforced, and those that are caught using will be sent to rehabilitation home and all that. But my question is, what is the plan for reporting people that are under the influence and that are being seen by fellow young Nigerians? Because I mean, now IT has, there's nothing that can be hidden again in Nigeria as long as you have a smartphone. I'm very sure, and with the consciousness and interest of Nigerian youth in this election, in fact, 2023 election, you will be receiving a lot of probably what they call, is it FaceTime information. You'll be receiving a lot of videos. What are the measures on ground to respond speedily, rapidly, almost in real time if possible, if you receive such videos and such information about those who have been organized to create or to start violence at polling units, or are some organizing to interrupt free and fair elections, and they are caught doing this, planning this under the influence, and you receive such information in whatever part of the country, the hinterlands, over the waters, the south part of Nigeria, the deserts in the north and all that. What will you do immediately to ensure that you curb that? Because if people are under the influence and they are planning and they're about to execute, and we don't have a rapid response, you and I know what will happen. And whatever will happen is going to influence the outcome of the elections. So we like it or not, our part, as we discussed today, has a whole lot of impact on whatever the result of this election is going to be. So what are the strict measures? What are the structures on the ground? I'm not going to say, I'm not asking about the usual thing, or if you catch them with drugs and you arrest them or something. No. What is a rapid response, particularly, specifically designed for this election? I will yield my mic, and that is my only question and contribution for today. Thank you very much. And if my question is not clearly responded to, I will come back and request for the mic, because my heart is pounding.
Thank you very much, Loretta, and once again, good morning to you. I think for her, it's good morning. Already in anticipation of this, we have an electoral security architecture under the auspices of the ISIS that involve a number of actors, almost all the law enforcement and security agencies and other critical stakeholders. All that is designed and provided for to ensure that we have a violence-free and peaceful election. And such security architecture, made and designed for electoral to address electoral violence, is designed right from the top down to the local level and to the polling units, and up to the level of collection centers and all the stages of the electoral processes. And what it means is that at every stage where you have an ISIS, you're likely going to have an NDLEA representation there. And what the structure is designed is such that when you have the nature and the pathology of the crime or the threats, be it if it appears to do with substance of abuse, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency will sadly take the process forward. And if it is another pathology of crime, some other institutions will take the drive and drive the process further. And for us, it's not just being in Abuja or in the city, right? Like you said, up to the local government level, notwithstanding the desert or the riverine nature of the environment, wherever it is, wherever you have a polling unit, certainly you're going to have a security architecture designed and calibrated to address electoral violence. And that is during the election proper. But already, like you've had, what we said from the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency perspective, that already
we are in top gear trying to mop up the preponderance of drug abuse in circulation. But to be specific on the issue of fermented trouble under the drug or under the influence of drug abuse during the election proper, rest assured that the mechanism to deploy is right around the polling units. That is to ensure peaceful, free, and fair election, and that the democratic process has never been derailed. That is our take on that, and we will remain consistent on that. And we will be assured that the standard operating procedure is going to apply, and every member of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency and in general, member of ISIS is being guided by the Electoral Act and what constitutes electoral violence and what he is expected to do to ensure that this process is never derailed in any form.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sorry, I'm just one more. Mr. Bakami, I'm sorry, one more. Mr. Howard, let me give you an example. For example, I'm in somewhere maybe I'm somewhere in Bayelsa, I'm in somewhere in Kano or Sokoto or Ibadan, and I have a smartphone, and I take a picture of people doing drugs and planning for violence in a particular place or a particular polling unit. I can hear them, but I am helpless. And I take a video and I do a video, and I send it to, maybe an NDLEA staff or NDLEA office in that state or that locality. And I say, please help. This is what I see. Please help. If you don't come immediately, they are likely to, cause mayhem and cause violence. In that kind of scenario, I'm thinking of doing an election. In that kind of scenario, that's what I'm being specific about. What does NDLEA have particularly for that rapid response? I appreciate the structure, I appreciate the involvement and pathology of the crime and direct it to where. What about the pathology of the crime? And the closest person is the NDLEA. But I'm asking specifically if this is a drug, drug influence violence, planning and coordination. What will happen in that instance? Because this election there's going to be a lot of people on influence doing things. So that's what happens. Is there a number to call? Is there a number to send a text message to from the NDLEA in particular? Because what this platform have been able to do is to give access to a lot of young people about what's happening. And I'm speaking on behalf of thousands of Nigerian youths to say, because I'm on this platform, because I do not have any other access to a phone number, to a rapid response call, what do we do? What do we do? You belong to the Security Council. What do we do?
Thank you very much, Loretta, for that clarification and wonderful and being passionate about the Nigerian project. Good enough. The response mechanism is always a web. What I mean by a web is that besides maintaining a desk in the operational center of INEC, we equally even in our base stations. In all NDLEA formations, we have a desk officer that is expected to be receiving information, and such information is not limited to only what is happening in the polling unit. Such information from individuals as to what is happening in the field is welcome and is very much expected. And lest you forget, we already have in operation our call center. The call center is meant to be operated all through the period and it's still open. And it is not only meant for people that seek drug intervention. No, we equally wanted to leverage that as well as a source of leveraging information. So if you have anything to do, do not hesitate. And I'm telling this to every Nigerian and every listener here that our call center is still open, is equally part of the platform and part of the framework that we are going to leverage. And of course, the space, the Twitter space, the Facebook, they're all open. So wherever you can reach, it is acceptable, and we have a wave that always connects our operations right from the call center to all our handles and right to our desk officer that is in the office and the one connecting with the operational center in INEC. And of course, the responses is at the very level, be it at the state, local or area command level that we said, the intervention is going to be spontaneous. And do not hesitate to leverage all the platform you can think of that you've been using, they all apply in the circumstance as well. The only thing is that much of the priority within this period is deployed towards electoral process. I think for the purpose of this, I think I really need to echo the call center number, which is always been saying 0800 10 20 30 40. This number still remain active, and you are at wherever you are at liberty to deploy it, not necessarily in district, but in all circumstances, including where you feel that the electoral process occasioned by elements that commit what do you call it? Elements that constitute that are trying to constitute to drill the electoral process under the influence of drugs. Be rest assured the National Government Law Enforcement Agency will respond appropriately. Thank you, Loretta.
Thank you very much, PM. Loretta, I guess you must be satisfied with that now. And
it's fine. The number is fine. I'm satisfied.
Thank you, Loretta. And please let's be very optimistic and very positive that there won't be violence by the grace of God, because the way you were speaking like as if you are a prophetess somewhere trying to say, no, whether we like it or not, there will be something. No, there won't be something, Loretta. Otherwise, if there is any chance or possibility of anything, I'll send you a ticket to come back so that you come and be part of the process.
I am the most optimistic.
Very well, I know that. I know that about you. I know that about you. I know you are passionate about our fatherland. Thank you very much, Loretta, for always being part of this process. That is nation building. God bless you, really good. Let's quickly move to thank you very much. Okay, let's have the from here we have one of our. Let's quickly move to state commander already. Okay, let me yield the mic to him. Let's take his own view as well. Commander Bashir Ibrahim, let me yield what's happening or what are some of the processes of you as well. Location. Thank you.
Thank you very much for allowing me to the space once again. Very good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to everyone, irrespective of where you are listening from. I think this topic cannot be better discussed than this period. And good evening to everyone. And from my own palace where we are, we've been this topic actually 100% engaged in the election planning and both during and where we are. Hello.
Please go ahead. We can hear you.
All right. Okay. Yes. Once I've engaged those that are seeking aspirants, the question I always ask them is: one, do you know the drug situation in the state? What are your plans to address the drug situation? What is the present government doing to address the situation? How are you going to take it up from there? And it will surprise you that 80% of them cannot even answer that question. Secondly, when addressing the electorate, I ask them, these people are coming to you to campaign. Did you ask them that our major problem we have in the state is drug issue? What are they doing to address it? Surprisingly, because of our campaign, they have been subjected to such question now. So we cannot rule out our role in this election period when we talk in terms. My take here is, in as much as we are part of the security apparatus, the enlightenment aspect are they bringing on board? How are they going to be addressing the drug issue in the state? Thank you very much. I think I'll leave the space for others to comment.
Okay, thank you very much, Commander Bashir Ibrahim. Barrister Shooks Akamadu, would you want to say anything to some of the two reactions before I go to our DM?
Well, I think that the general elections is about their future. Then we don't even to ensure that the security of the electoral process
Okay, I guess we lost Barrister Shooks Akamadu there. Let's I think it has to do with network. Let me quickly acknowledge some of those already on this. Some of those on the space. I have Auntie Kemi, that is Adebola Faloye. I have Just Judy, thank you for coming. We have Owolabi, thank you for coming. And I can see Dr. Kemi Olunloyo also coming to the speaker's corner. Dr. Kemi, it's a pleasure having you again after going on sabbatical.
Sabbatical, okay. I'm in school. I'm in medical school studying pharmacy, and I don't understand anything.
You are not because it's not like those. I mean, not like the 40, 50 years ago when you were in the class. So I mean, quite a lot of things has happened.
Yeah, let me briefly tell you. My first day last Friday, I was in a pharmacokinetics class on Zoom online. And I have these 21-year-old medical students who are in class with me, and I'm a 59-year-old pharmacist. Now, pharmacokinetics, I studied at 21. I graduated at 22. So, ordinary paracetamol, acetaminophen, and nitroglycerin is what they put in front of me. I could not memorize the chemical structure. I just wasn't getting. I was like, everyone was laughing. I'm like, do you know what it is to come back to school 50 years later, 35 years later? It's very interesting because there's so many drug innovations. And I just want to briefly say hi to everybody. And what I want to say is the
Let's hear.
of
Can
the
you
two
please share some with us. For those of us who cannot be in pharmacokinetic class, please can you share
pharmacokinetics.
some of
Yeah. We
yes,
have,
please quickly share with us some
uh-huh.
of what you've seen in the past few days or weeks that you
Yeah.
started this class. Share with us
Um,
and let's
pharmacy.
round up on the
Yeah, pharmacy is
go ahead, please.
the degree. Pharmacy is the degree, but it contains different courses. Pharmacology, pharmacotherapeutics, pharmacology, the study of the drugs and how exactly they work. Pharmacotherapeutics, how the drugs work in every single side of the body. The way a drug works in the kidney might be different. The way that's pharmacotherapeutics. Pharmacokinetics, how that drug actually starts to work. It sounds similar how it starts to work and what is in that drug itself and what it's targeting in the body. So, like I said, I got nitroglycerin, which is used for heart, chest pain, and acetaminophen, which is paracetamol, used for mild to moderate pain and aches and all that. So, the chemical structure, what is going to stop that hydrogen or that nitrogen group from working? And then you have pharmacognosy, the study of drugs from the herbal roots, like, for example, marijuana. If we have marinol capsules that we're using for HIV patients that can't eat or can't consistently having nausea, pharmacognosy explains that marinol capsule, how it came from marijuana and what the THC is doing medicinally. So you have all these pharma courses, ethics, pharmacotherapeutics, pharmaceutics. But what is, I decided to go back to school because I have a goal. I have done a lot on the prevention side, like one of the speakers was saying. I have done it 35 years, spent 1 year with the NDLEA spaces, and I use my platform to do the same thing. My platform is very powerful. I use all my very tell young people about the dangers of drugs, and I created a new one, which is on Twitter, Instagram, Drug Abuse Africa. And I felt that I gained something because many people came to Dr. Kemi, and many of them were parents that needed to know. So my goal is to open my own rehabilitation center by the age of 65. I'm going to be 60 next year. However, we have to start looking that way now. Prevention. I've taught people how to do prevention. Now, I want to be interested in recovery. Recovery is in Nigeria. We do not have funding. There is no money. Rehab centers are charging a lot of money, 700,000 a month to 1.2 million a month. We talked about this 2 weeks ago with one speaker. Does your parent have this kind of money? Mr. Babafemi, I'm getting so many people calling me from everywhere in the country. Please help us. We're not rich. We have no money. And
yeah, I think this is why we continue to raise the awareness, one for prevention. Then we also have some stakeholders. Yeah, we also have some stakeholders who are. I can tell you that, for instance, in Abuja here, we have Dr. Hope Omeza, who is the medical director of Vanguard Against Drug Abuse. Uganda Detox Center in Abuja here. He's partnering with the agency to treat 10 people free of charge in the facility in Abuja here. So we need a lot of stakeholders like that who will do this, and that would also be encouraging in addition to some of the things people like you are doing.
Yeah, and so the reason, even as I am at 59 years old, I feel that I can still make a difference, because when I go back to America and I see rehab free and government will pay for it, Medicaid, Medicare, United Kingdom is getting worse. They can't cover again. So now that are helping in the UK is £5,000 to £7,000 £1,000 a month. I mean, one of the cheapest places I've seen in that hospital, Yaba Left Hospital. And Yaba, somebody just came out of Yaba and was on Loud, Colorado, and this person paid for it. The sister contacted me. The sister is in UK. Dr. I had to her, but it's a lot of area. My goal is when I can now start working on service. Okay, a service we can counsel people coming. We can do psychologist facility. I have to work in back to school, and when one of the best universities in the world, they're medical. So when they were, actually outsiders, because that pharmacology medical students have to learn. So when they put it out for outsiders, people in the medical fields, and even me, I got it. So it's interesting. We're on Zoom, we're online, and it's hard.
Okay, let's go to the real.
Dear Joe, it's hard.
Okay, now
because
let's go to the real issue of today, Dr. Kevin.
Oh, yeah.
Youth involvement in drug abuse and electoral violence.
This is very important, Mr. Babafemi. We had a space about this. You remember that space? The space about
absolutely
youth. This is my recommendation. If the police were to arrest thugs, okay, first of all, I'm not really happy that President Buhari shut down the universities for 3 weeks or 2 weeks. I'm not happy. Does it boost the election? At this point, you have to have your PVC before you can vote. But I just feel that universities closing during the elections, there's some gains on it. There's some pluses. If there's violence, everybody's at home. But a lot of youth are going to go back into drugs. They're going to be rowdy. Some of them are even going to get into this thuggery. And if you catch them, if the Nigerian police catches anybody trying to disrupt elections, the NDLEA technically should have them go straight to rehabilitation if they find that they're positive for drug use. Now, this is another reason why I was saying that it's going to be very hard to even legalize marijuana in Nigeria. Okay, why? Because this thing is smoked by a lot of people who are going out on operations like that, robberies, banditry, and even election violence. They smoke it and they come out, they snatch ballot boxes, they disrupt things. So it's very hard because we don't need marijuana medicinally in Nigeria. There's no use for it. None of the doctors are going to even use it medicinally. So it leaves recreational. So that's going to be very hard to legalize. Because, I was arguing with Showore on that. It's not Nigeria that you want to decriminalize. It's going to be years. We wouldn't even be here if it's even legalized. But for my recommendation to the NDLEA, I strictly recommend throwing them into rehabilitation. Anyone arrested is going straight to rehab. That's it. That's all I have to say. The more, I'm not using it as a bait that we should capture all the people that are abusing drugs and using it to create violence. But I think it's time. It's really, really time. Because some youth are just going to be rowdy. You saw the pictures in Abeokuta, Mr. Babafemi, and everybody listening. You saw the pictures in Abeokuta. Naira scarcity. Did the youth not go out and tear up banks and ATMs? One young man got shot. We saw him losing blood. I heard that he survived, and the governor went to visit him. This kind of stuff may happen in 2 weeks. So we shouldn't have all this violence happen, and that's very, very important. Parents, talk to your children about drugs. Like the second guest said, the second guest spoke about it. The second guest spoke about that. Talk to your children about opioids, narcotics, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, prescription drugs. If it was not prescribed for you, do not take it. That's all I have to say. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kemi Olunloyo. Please stand by. You never
I
can
will.
tell. You have quite a lot of fans on the space, so there might be
Oh, I
some.
love everybody. I really love all my
Yeah.
fans and I missed you guys last week. Oh, I listened to the space last week on Saturday, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I'll stand
Thank you
by.
very much. All right.
All right.
Thank you. Okay. I can see Bashir Ibrahim raising his hand. Would you want to say something? Please go ahead if you have something to say. Otherwise, I'll pick quite some questions from our DM now. Let me quickly go into our DM for some of the questions waiting
Yes.
for us. I guess Shooks
Briefly.
is
Okay.
having some issues. If Mahmoud can assist him, I've tried getting him back. Okay, now I got
Okay.
this question
Right,
from
sir.
Blessing. Is drug use and you said what?
Sir? Oh, can I go ahead? You said that you could please say something.
Okay. Yeah, is it still on the space?
Yes. No,
No, Chooks is on the space as a listener, so I sent him an invite to come to the speaker table.
It needs to be on the speaker table. Let me quickly get some questions from our DM. Okay, Blessing is asking, is drug use and electoral violence mutually exclusive or mutually dependent? That's for the PM or Shooks. If Shooks is coming back, let's have your views, your thoughts on this. Is drug use and electoral violence mutually exclusive or mutually dependent? Then, same Blessing is also asking, NDLEA officers are deployed as part of the elections duty. What are their limitations in performing their duties in drug demand reduction in the election period? PM, did you get that?
Thank you, Bawafemi, and thanks for that question. Right from the onset, we realized that we've made that clear that we understand that electoral violence involves quite a number of things. And then what is not in doubt is that the drug abuse has remained a catalyst to such violence. And in that context, the two would have to be appraised in the same circumstance. But this time around, what we have is that if for any reason the drug abuse is been predicated and designed deliberately to foment trouble, then be rest assured that the law will take its course as taking drugs maliciously simply because you want to exert electoral violence.
Okay, what about the second question? Are you done with that?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me take the next question from Ini. How can individuals volunteer their time and resources to help prevent drug abuse and election violence in their communities? I'm sure you'll be glad to answer this. Then the second, it's also a two-part question. There's also another one. How can individuals support friends or family members struggling with drug addiction and prevent them from becoming involved in violence during the election? I believe they are related, so you can as well answer them at a go. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. The two issues are intertwined. Of course, like we've always been saying, in respect of NDLEA, this time around, responsive to issue of public health, we've always been addressing, giving opportunity to public to come up on board and come up with their suggestions and where it appears that they required help. Of course, all our platforms are readily open, be it in every locality you can think of. If they can't really respond and assist at that level, the response mechanism is going to be escalated to the appropriate situation. Especially that equally goes to family in distress, where they have a crisis situation of individual or a one-ones or a loved one that is has the tendency or the vulnerability of getting into drug use and perhaps degenerating into electoral violence. Of course, the same mechanism, the same process shall apply. Leverage all our platforms at the very local level where you have that's the nearest NDLEA information around you or such other facility that you can use as a holding facility before you link up with the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. For an intervention. I think that's the appropriate way to go.
The fear that those political elements who may want to use thugs may also have to resort to getting them the new psychoactive substances. What do you think should be done about this? Okay, I think let's get your view first, PM. Then we ask Dr. Kemi. I think this person also wants to listen to Dr. Kemi on this. Please go ahead, PM.
So sorry, listeners, because somehow we are slightly off the air at this end. I'm unable to. Okay, now the question really, I couldn't really get that question clearly, but I'm sure there is a director. I don't know whether I get that question very well, so that you can just give me a quick recap of it quickly.
Yes, what the person is saying is asking is that now that the agency, that is the NDLEA, has mopped up substantial parts of the drugs, the illicit substances in circulation, that what do you think will be done about the desperation by some political elements to get the new psychoactive substances for their would-be thugs?
Oh, thank you very much, Director. Well, incidentally, people should be very much, and even the desperate politicians should be very much be conscious of the provisions of the Electoral Act, because the ultimate goal is that they wanted to get what? Victory at all costs. They should be equally be conscious and be concerned about the consequences, because if then it wasn't pronounced as an offense, now the Electoral Act has made electoral violence, and it has gone forward to equally define what constitutes electoral violence. Then the tendency is that in the abuse or in the breach of the Electoral Acts, then the consequence may turn out to haunt such person that take advantage of that. And I think that should be enough warning.
Okay, Dr. Kemi, please, let's hear your thoughts.
This is my own opinion of it. I'm encouraging everybody to snitch. If you know of a politician that has psychoactive substances stashed in their election headquarters or their homes, contact the NDLEA anonymously. That's the best way. Once they raid that person's house, they can then, arrest, convict whoever has those drugs there, because I don't see anything useful for those drugs other than giving it to the thugs who are going to take them. And if you plan to be a political thug, think well, because some of these drugs will actually kill you. If you think you're fighting for somebody, you're actually maybe fighting for your life. It's very, very important. If you go to Drug Abuse Africa on Twitter now, I just tweeted something about an hour ago. Mr. Babafemi, did you hear about the cocaine they found in the middle of the ocean? 3.9 tons of cocaine found in the middle of the ocean. I just tweeted it. Everybody can go there to Drug Abuse Africa and read the story. Putumayo, Colombia is producing the most cocaine now, and it's 2,000 tons a day. And what we have is we are finding more seizures in Africa and Europe. Those are the two destinations. And Africa is Nigeria and South Africa, the Bulgarian mafia. And I believe the NDLEA caught some big amount of cocaine in Ikorodu last year. So these are the markets, okay? Cocaine, crack, Europe, and Africa. And somehow some big cartel dropped 3.9 tons of cocaine in the middle of the sea. Go read it, everybody. They're bringing it over here. So if you want to be a political thug waiting for your share of the cocaine, you may be killed, you may be sick. And if you know anybody, anyone working for a politician, and if you have knowledge of it, it's so easy to call the NDLEA anonymously or just email or just send a DM. You don't need a real account. Just report it, because we're not going to tolerate election violence that's fueled by drugs. Drugs fuel everything and makes it worse. That's what I have to say.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Kemi. I still okay, let's quickly hear from Said. Said, please quickly, we have just about 5 minutes to go.
Hello, everyone. I'm greeting everyone. My name is Said, and I'm from Kano Peace Committee. I'm speaking from Kano Peace Committee. My contribution will be from the angle of here, Kano State. We all know that Kano State is one of the giant states in Nigeria. Really, when it comes to electoral violence and drug abuse, I think, if I may tell, currently, right now, our organization is having a meeting with some reformed political thuggeries that have been used 2019 and were being dumped. So now they are frustrated, and along the process, we met with one of their heads, and he linked us to almost 500 of them. So currently we are having a meeting with them. So all I wanted to contribute in this space is that in this election, really, no doubt, lots of plans and strategies were made by politicians to threaten the life of Nigerians. So NDLEA and other security agencies are to tighten up their belt, wake up. The thing is not as easy as you think. Wallahi, it's not easy as you think. Especially in the Kano branch, they can collaborate with these political talks too in doing other operations. So this is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Said, for that contribution. We appreciate that. Okay, I think we just have to take the last one now. Okay, I'm not sure we'll be able to Richard that I wanted to give the last opportunity. He's probably still struggling with his network. Then I would like to okay, let me just okay.
Sorry, Dr. Kemi.
Yeah, Dr. Kemi is still on the space.
Yes, I wanna share with her something on DM. So I wanted to tell her.
Why not? Yeah, you can go to her DM. You can go to her DM. She's available. Thank you very much, Sahid. Let Dr. Kemi, would you like to say, because I saw you were reacting to what Said was saying. In just 1 minute, would you want to make your last contribution? I will ask, take the final shot from our own Director of Internal Affairs and Provost Marshal of the agency.
So now they are frustrated, and along the process, we met with one of their heads, and he linked us to almost 500 of them.
Percent is for the
desperate politicians who chooses and decide not to hasten to the call of the National Drug Law Enforcement agencies and such other well-meaning Nigerians to avoid the issue of drug dealing by way of sponsorship of political thugs. I think he has himself to blame because the window that you can hear Kemi is advocating, that window is open. That's where we have information anonymous to us that yes, we are going to respond, and of course the full wrath of the law will apply irrespective of what political leaning you belong. So be rest assured that you need to be very cautious. You need to have a rethink, and then for the youths, for our
be well guided. And on that note, we would like to wish each and every one of us a very wonderful evening and an excellent weekend. Bye for now. Over to you, Mahmoud.